There we go. I know it felt like I was looking at you weird for a minute. I had to make sure I hit the record button. We don't want to not have a recording. Okay. So for those of you that are just now joining us, it's just now 7:02. We won't get started for another few minutes. While you're waiting, let's go ahead and paint that canvas black. As you paint the canvas black, I was like, how am I going to say that? I'm just going to say it. Make sure when you think you're done painting your canvas black that you move the canvas. Look at it in different angles, because black is real tricky. And if you look at it at a different angle, you might see little speckles of canvas that you've missed. So make sure you're moving it around and looking at it. And don't forget those edges. I want to make sure I'm respectful of everyone's time. So it's 7:03. We say class starts at 7. How about we all paint our canvases black and we'll start, so I'll run through the supply list and everything, at 7:15. That sound like a plan? Yeah, Marie, does that sound like a plan? I lost Marie. There she is. Okay, don't disappear on me, Marie. All right, so 7:15, I will check back in and we'll start the class at that point. I'll run through our supply list. That should give you time to paint your canvas black, paint all your edges black. Make sure you're smoothing out that black paint so you don't have any big paint boogers. That'll take a long time to dry. So at 7:15, we'll check back in. You should have a dry black canvas by then, okay? I'm just going to keep talking. So if you've been with me for a while and you know the plan, right, we'll start at 7:15. You can mute me if you want. But I see we have some new people that have just joined us right now. So I'm not going to say anything you guys haven't already heard. Right now, we are painting our entire canvas black. At 7:15, we will essentially get started then. That's when I'll run through the supply list, make sure you have everything you need. So by 7:15, you should have a completely black canvas, and it should be pretty dry for the most part. So as you paint your canvas black, move it around. Make sure you don't have any speckles, no canvas weave showing through. Black can be really tricky depending on your light. And make sure you got all your edges black. Okay, so at 7:15, we'll essentially get started then. I'm a big fan of air quotes, could you tell? we'll get started. And I don't know if you guys can hear it, but I have my Halloween station playing in the background, which just makes me so happy. Because not only is today Harry Potter's birthday, this is Halloween Eve. The Halloween season starts August 1st and goes clear through the end of the year. So I'm super happy right now. Does the Halloween season ever really stop? No, I don't think it does. I think it has a high point and then a low point. So tomorrow starts Halloween high season. How's that? And this freaking COVID needs to get out of here so we don't lose Halloween this year. I'm so excited to see what you guys do with this tonight. I know a couple of you have private messaged me and reached out to me with special things you're going to do tonight in your painting. And I'm super excited, Jessica. I'm super excited to see what happens. Okay, now I feel like I need to share Jessica's idea because it was super stinking cute. Jessica's the one that has Sparty, her parrotlet. He's a parrotlet, right? Because he's little. But anyway, she's trying to figure out, she puts birds in all of her paintings, and she's joined us several times before. So you've probably seen some of her paintings with birds in them. She's trying to figure out how to get Hedwig in this painting. And we brainstormed earlier and thought, wouldn't it be super cute if the always in cursive at the bottom, you had Hedwig flying at the end of it, so it looked like he painted it in the sky as he was flying. I think that'd be super fun. Okay, I see a couple new people have just joined us. So right now what we're doing, we're painting the entire canvas black. Make sure you get all your edges, change the pitch of your canvas back and forth to make sure you get paint in all the canvas weave. Black can be really tricky if, depending on your lighting, it'll mess with you. You'll think it'll be perfect, and then like you'll change the pitch on it later, and you'll be like, oh, it's too faded in that spot. So make sure you have your whole canvas black, all your edges. At 7:15 in about 4 minutes, we'll come back together and we'll essentially get started then. So I'm going to disappear for a moment and take this to the blow dryer, because when we do get started, we're going to want to make sure it's completely dry. Okay, so I'll be back in a few minutes. I'm going to go to the blow dryer. All right, this is your 2-minute warning, 2 minutes before we get started. And you know I'm going to talk for a fat 5 minutes at least before we even get started then. So 2 minutes, make sure your canvas is completely painted black and make sure it's dry before we get started. And while we're waiting for that last minute before we get started, make sure you're checking out the chat feature in Zoom. I have listed out supplies that you might find really helpful for tonight. And I've added a couple extra things. A straight edge. Oh yes, Lynn, stand by. I'll talk about that actually. A straight edge might be helpful if you're going to paint the Deathly Hallows on there. So that might be helpful. And some kind of a circle to trace might be helpful. I initially had thinking of paper plate. I'm afraid a paper plate might be too big. So I went ahead and got one of my dinner plates too, because it's a little bit smaller. That might work better. I don't know, we'll see. I'll start to map it out and we'll see. So take a look at the chat feature to make sure you've got everything you need. And I'm gonna go ahead and get my paint out and then I'll come back and we'll get started. When you get your colors out, little bits, you're not gonna need much. A tiny bit of paint is gonna go a long way. So don't get out big piles of paint. If we were at the studio, I would say the equivalent of 1 pump of paint for each one of those colors. And for now, you can put the black away. Okay, Lynn, to answer your question, if you don't have a sponge, because we're going to use a sponge to paint, to do all the galaxy stuff in the background. If you don't have a sponge, you can use a crumpled up paper towel. Crumpled up paper towel will work well. Have several though, because after a little while, that paper towel is going to start to deteriorate and you might leave pieces behind on your canvas as it breaks down. So have a handful of paper towels to work with. Okay, so I'm gonna get my paint out. I'll be right back and we'll get started. All right, everyone, let's get started, shall we? All right, first things first. Everybody have their beverage, their Kool-Aid or their coffee or whatever, right? Everybody has their music on, right? Or their Harry Potter in the background. So happy birthday, Harry. I'm super excited. I know you guys have already heard this, but this is Halloween Eve for me. Not only is it Harry Potter's birthday, this is Halloween Eve. August 1st starts spooky season for me. Spooky high season, because it's spooky season all year round, but spooky high season. So I'm super excited that we get to play. Oh, for the constellations. Owl, Okay, stand by, Jessica. Let me. Oh, did you send that to me privately? I'm sorry. I think your question was, it moved really fast. The owl, I would do the owl last, right? Because you're going to want all the stars and everything in the background, the constellation. I think I would do the owl last. I'm hoping that answered your question. No, she's typing. Stand by. Sort of. I like to sort of answer questions. Owl post. Owl. I guess I don't know what you mean by owl post. Oh. So the tower at Hogwarts. I'm going to need to see a sketch. I'm going to need you to take a napkin and sketch that out because I'm not sure which direction you're going. I knew what you meant. Yeah. Take a napkin and sketch that out for me because I'm not really sure. But regardless, we're going to do all the, we're going to do the constellation of all the stars first, and then we'll build on top of that. Okay. Are we doing 2 canvases? Someone just asked if we're doing 2. Oh, because it's 2. No, those 2 separate paintings, those 2 separate pictures were to show you, if you're not a Harry Potter fan, you could do a lovely night sky and do some trees and things at the bottom. You don't necessarily have to do the Deathly Hallows symbol. So that was just to show you 2 different versions of essentially the same painting. Okay. So I'm gonna combine those, I think, and show you aspects of both. I'm gonna do the galaxy night sky with the Deathly Hallows symbol and the always, but then I might also put some trees down in the bottom to show you what that would look like. Okay. All right. So as we get started, oh, everybody take a big deep breath. Ah, it's good to be here, right? First things first. Studio is still closed. Studio will continue to be closed for a little while longer. Nobody knows how much longer, especially since cases are spiking in Ohio. So we have, for those of you that aren't in Ohio, because I know we have people from all over the country here tonight, we have an alert system in Ohio that tells you which counties cases are spiking and which ones are holding steady. And I don't want to talk very long about COVID, but I want to let you know where my brain's at. Yellow and orange means we're kind of holding steady. Red is kind of alert, right? We're moving in the wrong direction. Union County just went from red back down to orange, which is a good thing. So if we can see a couple consistent weeks of orange, yellow, I'll start to think about opening the studio back up. I think right now, all of August is probably going to continue to be virtual because in reality, the physical studio space is slow right now anyway. Traditionally in years past, the studio has been slow because there are so many other things to do outside, and I recognize that. But the minute school starts and people start to head back inside, the studio starts to pick back up. So even after we're able to open the physical studio space back up and we're able to get back in there and play, we'll still do Zoom classes. We'll still do online Zoom. So, all right, supplies. Let's get to it, shall we? So make sure you have an apron on or a paint shirt. The paint that we're using is acrylic paint, water-based, water-soluble. If you get it on your clothes and it dries, it's a bear to get out. So make sure you have some kind of a smock or an apron. I still have aprons at the studio if anybody needs one, $12. They're just like this, minus the Shauna Sue. They're embroidered. They're really nice. They don't have the paint on them yet. You get to do that for yourself. So apron, paint shirt, something like that. We have our canvas. I have painted my canvas completely black, got all my edges. I've moved it in different angles to make sure that I have all of my little speckles filled in. Black paint on a canvas is kind of tricky sometimes. You'll think you have it covered and then you'll change the angle and it'll be a mess. So make sure you've got that. Let's see, what else? paint, let's talk a little bit about paint. So I got my paint out on my palette. I don't have black out. I might need black later for my trees, but if you're not doing trees, you may not need black. But don't get rid of it. If you have a little bit of black left, hang on to it, don't put it away. You might need it to fix a star. Oops, sometimes that happens. You might find a spot that you need to touch up when you put the Deathly Hallows symbol on there. So don't completely get rid of the black. Hang on to it, even if it's just a little tiny bit. I have white. I block out white. I have bright red. Bright red is very important because bright red mixes really well with phthalo blue to give me purple. So if you're not sure what red you have, you might want to do a little test mix there to make sure that your red is going to mix well with your blue to give you purple and not give you poop. If your red is too far on the orange side and you try to mix it with blue, it can be bad. So you might do a little test mix in there on your plate. And then I also have phthalo green. Phthalo green is it's almost a cool green. Green oxide is very warm, very olivey. Phthalo green is very turquoisey. So I think that'll be lovely in the sky too. Okay, so there's my paint. Let's talk about all the supplies that I have over here. I have a water cup. It's only filled halfway up. You don't need to fill it to the top. You know, I'm not sure, Angie, Studio Red, try a little test with a little bit of blue to make sure that you don't get poo. If it doesn't mix well, you might have to add a little bit of white into it too to make sure you're getting the shade of purple that you want. If it doesn't mix well, you might just have to avoid purple. So you'll have pink in your sky and then you'll have blue in your sky. But the only way to really know if it's not bright red is to do a little tester on your plate. Make sure your water in your cup is always cool or cold, never warm or hot. I already have a couple brushes in here. So you're going to want to make sure and have, well, my big brush is already in there because that's what I use to paint my background with. I also have just a medium brush. This is my medium filbert, right? And then I have a pointy brush that these are going to be really helpful to paint my words and my, you know, my stuff, my symbol. So a couple different brushes. You could also have a paint pen, right? Paint pen's always helpful because I'm really bad at signing my name with a brush, so I always keep a paint pen to sign with. I have a fan brush because, again, I'm going to show you that separate painting. I'm going to show you how to do trees at the bottom, and a fan brush is lovely for trees. I have a toothbrush for my stars, right? Never ever throw an old toothbrush away when you're done with it. When you get new ones, throw it in your paint bag, throw it in your supply bag. So I have paint, I have a toothbrush. I also have a ruler, some kind of a straight edge for my Deathly Hallows symbol to make sure I can get some straight lines. I have a couple circles. And when I say circles, I have a couple different sizes. So I have a paint plate, might be too big, I'm not sure. I need to think about it. It'll hit me when it hits me, right? But then I also grabbed a dinner plate out of the cupboard. Not a dinner plate, it's a dessert plate because it's a little bit smaller and that might work better. My concern is with this one, when I started to lay it out, if we know the symbol looks like this, right? So I need to get the wand up here and touch this. And if I do that, then it's going to run off the edge down here on this side. So I might do better with something smaller and keep my corners on my canvas. So that's something you're going to have to play with to see what works for you. You're also A sponge, if you have a sponge, that's going to be lovely to do your galaxy with. If you don't have a sponge, like an art sponge, you could find a kitchen sponge and just tear it in half and get a rough edge. This is one that I've torn the scrubber off the back of, so it's not like a flat cut edge. It's got this rough surface, so you could use that. If you don't have either one of those things, you can take paper towels. And I think I said it earlier, I'll say it again, make sure you have a couple paper towels. Paper towel will be lovely, right? You're just gonna crinkle it up and make a little stamper with it. But after just a little bit of time, the paper towel is gonna start to deteriorate. So you're gonna wanna change it out often so you don't leave paper towel bits behind on your canvas, because that's a bummer when that happens. Let's see, I also have in my supplies over there a little bit of glitter, because glitter, let's talk for just a moment about glitter. Glitter is lovely in the stars, might be really nice in the stars. Glitter is a bear to paint over. So I would say use glitter with caution, because if you decide to splatter your stars, glitter glue is lovely. Are you going to use that for the symbol, I assume? Mm-hmm. If I splatter my stars and I sprinkle glitter on, then to be able to paint my symbol, it's going to be a little more of a challenge, because I'm not going to have a smooth canvas. It's going to have the grit of the glitter on there. Something else that I have in my art kit, a chalk pencil. This is something I've only ever found them at like Hobby Lobby or Michael's. I can't find them at Walmart or Meijer, so you may have to actually go to a craft store. But it's a pencil, but it's white, so it's chalk. It's lovely if you're working on a dark background and you wanna sketch something on there real quick before you paint it. So there's that. Next time you get out, it would be lovely. Oh my God, glow! I know you meant to say glow in the dark paint, but it kind of makes me smile that you said blow, blow in the dark paint. I don't want to know what's going on at your house, Lynn. Okay, so let's get started, shall we? So inspiration picture, I don't have it. I have it on my screen over here. So let me pull it up real quick. I know, I adore autocorrect. Sometime when we're in a private setting, I will tell you my autocorrect nightmare. Not funny. Okay, so if I look, I really like the galaxy in the always painting. So I'm gonna take my sponge, and there's, looks like blue over here. There's some green in the middle. There's a little purple, maybe even a little more blue down here. The thing to remember with the paint that we're using, if you got paint from the studio or if you're buying the Blick Student Acrylics, they're very, very, very transparent. That's going to work to our benefit tonight, because we want them to be really faded and have a couple little bright spots. To get those bright spots, we'll add a tiny bit of white. Not going to do that to start with. I'm just going to start with straight color, so it is very transparent. It's funny where I put paint your canvas. Oh, you could do your galaxy with brushes. I would, if I were going to use a brush, let me find the brush that I would use. Probably this one. I would use an older brush, or a brush with really short bristles. So I would be tempted to use this guy because he's older and he's going to be a little splayed out. I would dry him out really good. And then you could do this with him. Or you could even do a little scribble, a little scrumble. But if you do that, you're going to use tiny, tiny, tiny bits of paint, just like a sponge or a paper towel. Okay. So I'm going to start with some blue over there. So I've got my sponge, and it's just dry. And I'm going to take a little bit of blue, and I'm just going to tap it out there. Now this is going to be really hard to see, because again, dark blue on a black canvas is very transparent. more of my sponge here. There we go. And I'm just gonna tap, 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 tap. I wanna keep it a little brighter in the middle and then fade off as I move out to the edge. So I'm just tap, tap, tapping. Tap, tap, tap. So now remember, galaxies are, I think I just said that though, a little brighter in the middle and they fade out. So let's get that little bit of blue on there. And then to get that bright spot, and remember, it's very irregular too. Don't do a circle, don't do a line. Keep it a very organic shape, okay? Once you have a little bit of blue on there, I know this is really hard to see. Once you have a little bit of blue on there, take the tiniest bit of white. I do mean tiny. So I've got a little blue on my sponge. Oh, that's too much, right? The tiniest bit of white. And start back in the middle of that blue. And work that around a little bit. Tiny bit of white is going to go a long way. So now as you do this experiment, are you going to continue to tap, tap, tap? Are you going to scribble? Are you going to scribble tap? I don't know. It's up to you. The trick is teeny tiny bits of paint and move that little bit of paint around and tiny bits of white. I kind of like what the scribble's doing for me right now. Remember, very organic, very, there is no specific shape here. Just kind of flows and is what it is. Let me go back to a little more blue. And you'll see as I'm getting paint, I'm taking a little bit of paint, kind of tapping it off there in the middle of the plate so I don't have much paint on my sponge at all. All right, feel pretty good about that. Trying to think if I could explain my technique. No, not really. It's kind of a scribble, tap, 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 scribble, scribble, tap, tap. But I do want darker around the edges of that blob, little tiny bit brighter in the middle. So you don't want it too bright because you don't want to detract from your symbol. And the tiniest bit is going to go a long way, the tiniest bit of white. Okay, so I have my blue on there. Feel pretty good about that. I think while I still have my blue mess here, I might go down here in the bottom. Now, if you're thinking about putting trees or putting something at the bottom, you want to make sure, if you're going to put black trees, you want to make sure and have some contrast to lay those black trees on. So you're going to want some color down there. Otherwise, you're never going to see your black trees on a black canvas. So I'm going to get some color down there so you'll be able to see my black trees later. okay? So while I have blue on my sponge or paper towel or whatever you're using, brushes, go ahead and put get little bits of blue down here to give my trees a little contrast. Remember, you always start with that solid color first, the darker color first. And then add little bits of white, tiny, tiny bits of white. And I can't emphasize enough, the tiny, tiniest bit of paint. Okay. Okay, so I have my blue on there. Let's keep going. If you're using a sponge, you can flip it. You might want to run and rinse it out real quick under some warm water. If you decide, if you're using a sponge and you decide you need to rinse it out, when you're done rinsing it out, fold it up in a paper towel to dry it. Wrap the paper towel around it and squeeze it to dry it to get the excess water out of it, so you don't have any water drips down your painting. So I have my blue on there. I feel pretty good about that. I'm going to go ahead and move on to green, I think, because blue and green are safe. If they come into contact with one another, we'll get like a turquoisey color. I'm okay with that. And then I'll give my red a little bit, or my green a little bit to dry, and then I'll move on to purple. So I'm going to go rinse out, come back and get some green on there, and then I'll move on to purple, okay? Okay, I stepped over and rinsed my sponge out really good, and then like I said, I'm going to take it, just my damp sponge, wrap it up in this paper towel, and squeeze it really good to get the excess water out of it. It's okay if your sponge is a little damp when you start painting again, but again, you don't want it to thin the paint down too much, and you don't want water drips down your painting. There we go. All right. So again, green next, because green is safe next to blue. And when I say safe, it's just because I never want to mix colors that are too opposite on the color wheel, because I don't want a poo color. For my galaxy, I want my colors to be nice and bright and clear. If I go from green into red, those are opposites on the color wheel, you'll get poo. So I'm going to do this green, and then I'm going to give things a minute to dry and really plan out where I'm going to put that purple so I don't get in wet green and get poo. So I think if I had to explain what I was doing right now, I would say I'm probably keeping most of my color closer to the middle, keeping my corners a little darker, because if they're darker at the corners, it's going to lead your eye into the painting, right? If it's brighter in the middle and darker at the edges. And I'm also getting color down here at the bottom. So when I put my trees, you can do trees or not, up to you. But when I do put my trees on there to show you how to do it, I have good contrast. So that's kind of my thought process right now. So the green is just like the blue. Start with your darkest, your solid color first. Oh, too much white. And then start to add in little bits of white. Too much white, so I gotta move that around. It's funny, this is an important part of the process. So there was a piece of me, I was looking at my canvas and I was like, ooh, I don't know how I feel about this. And then I turned around and I looked on my screen, and I like it. So this is my reminder to you. Every now and then get away from it. Don't sit and tear it apart. Take a picture of it on your phone and then walk away from it and look at that picture on your phone. Your phone does funny things to pictures. Because the phones are so smart now, right? It'll pump up the contrast and it'll help you see things that you wouldn't normally see. If I'm struggling with a painting or I'm not sure the direction it's going, I don't know how I feel about it, I'll do that. I'll take a picture of it and then I'll walk away and I'll look at the picture and I'll see it differently on my phone. So that's my reminder to you, because as I'm working really close to this, I'm like, ooh, but then I get away from it and I look at the picture of it. Oh, I like that. Okay. Get a little bit of green down here at the bottom, and then I'm going to rinse out again, and I'm going to mix a little bit of purple and do that, and then we'll get into our stars. So to be respectful of everyone's time, it's 7:46. At 8 o'clock, I will check in with you. When we put the stars on at 8 o'clock, I'm not worried about the background being dry. We're using such little paint. It should be dry, but I'm not super worried about it unless you're going to put glitter in your stars. If you're going to glitter your stars, remember, glitter sticks everywhere paint is wet. So if I'm going to splatter some stars on there and glitter them, I want to make sure I don't have a chunk of wet paint over here, because I'll get a big old of glitter. Okay, so 8 o'clock, we'll come together and we'll start to talk a little bit about stars. I'll check in, make sure you're ready, but that's kind of where my brain's going. It's always scary where my brain's going. We never know. She derails on occasion. Okay, making sure to get my color down here. it just occurred to me, someone gave me, while we're painting, someone gave me art supplies to give away to people. That happened right before COVID closed everything down. Trying to think of a contest that we could do so I could give away some of those art supply kits. You guys have any ideas? Think about it. Let me know. I was thinking it's kind of like, it always makes me think, okay, bear with me because this is a train that may derail halfway through, but stay with me. When I was a kid, it was always fascinating to see what was in like mom's purse and grandma's purse. Because, you know, as ladies, for those of you ladies on here, we carried so much random crap in our purses. And it was always fascinating to me. And I wasn't allowed to look in mom's purse because it's a whole long story, which I have to tell you that now. She, at any point you can mute me and know that we'll come back together at 8 o'clock and we'll work on stars. So you've got about 11 minutes. So was never allowed in mom's purse because my mom did hair. She was a hairdresser. And for whatever reason, I guess she was doing haircuts on the fly on occasion. So she carried a folding straight razor in her purse. So I was never allowed to root around in mom's purse because she was afraid I'd cut myself on the folding straight razor. So I think that made it even more fascinating to know what goes on in a woman's purse. So anyway, that made me think about my art supply bag that I carry with me back and forth, because you can see we're not painting at the studio, we're painting at home. So I go to the studio and load up this big bag and bring it home. And week after week after week, I have so much random, we've been doing this since mid-March, I have so much random stuff in that bag. And then it made me wonder, what do other people's art bags look like? Because I know you guys all have your supplies, right? So what is that starting to look like, those of you that have been with me week after week? And I'm somehow trying to tie that into, do you have everything you need in your art bag? And could I give away some of those supplies that were given to me to help beef up your art bag? So take all of that I just said, rattle it around in your brain. Let me know what thoughts you guys have. I am going to, with that said, I'm going to go rinse my sponge, and I'm going to move on to purple. So I'll be ready here in 10 minutes to move on. And don't forget, when you rinse out, if you're using a sponge, when you rinse out your sponge, make sure you're drying it off in a paper towel. So I have a clean paper towel, and I've crinkled my sponge up in there, squeezed it really hard. Okay, so when that happens, so I just saw your comment, when that happens and you don't know what to do with those paintings, that's when you transition into canvas boards instead of stretched canvases, because stretched canvases are anywhere between, I don't know, 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch thick. Canvas boards are, I want to say, 1/16 of an inch thick. So you start to stack them in front of one another. So you can stack together 5 canvas boards, and they only take up the space of one stretched canvas. That's what I do. And then you open your own studio, so you have a place to put all of your stuff. Okay. And then I'll do paintings and think about, a lot of times when I'm doing a painting, I'll think about who it reminds me of, and I'll write a message around the back of it and gift it to people. And you know what's funny? I don't even care if they burn it. I don't care what they do with my paintings once they get them, but it makes me feel good because I put a piece of me into it and I thought of them while I was painting it. And once I paint something, for the most part, I'm done with it. I don't need to keep it around. I have very few sentimental attachments to my paintings that I do. There are a couple that I have sentimental attachments, but not many. Okay, so I'm looking, I want to make sure my green is dry, and it should be, because again, I'm not using very much paint. And I'm going to do a little bit of mixing here. A little bit of blue, a little bit of red, get a little puddle of purple here. Okay, tiny, tiny bits of paint. Oh, that's pretty color. Want some up here. And it's funny that purple looks a little bleh, a little brown on my canvas. But if I add the teeniest bit of white, it's really going to pop, and I'm going to be able to see what color it is really. So it looks kind of reddish brown right now. But if I add a tiny bit of white, oh, that's a pretty color. You know, you talk about too, I was just thinking about if you have all these extra paintings. I tell people a lot of times too, if we were in the studio, I would say this. When I paint, 99% is pretty high, but 90% of the time, it's about process, not product for me. I love how I feel when I'm painting. It does something for my mental health. It does something for me emotionally. It feels good. I have something that I created at the end of it. Sometimes it's crap, right? Sometimes what I create is crap, but it's process. It's how you feel when you're doing it. So I have some friends, and I've done this before. When I'm done with a painting, I'll take a picture of it, paint the canvas white, and move on, do another painting over top of it. Because again, it's the process of painting it. Or if it's a painting that really makes me angry, I'll burn it. That was probably a little too much insight into my brain. Sorry. Okay, get my purple in there. So we've got, this is your 5-minute warning. Five minutes. And again, I'm not worried about this being dry. You're right, Lynn. I do have a fire pit. I love my fire pit. That's where I will be heading tonight. So I have my, sorry, I was looking for my bulldog. Stand by. Okay. I had to check on her. She disappeared. She's fine. She's oversleeping by the sofa. So I have my wine chilling right now, my witch's brew. So I can go out to the fire pit when we're done here tonight and sit and have my glass of witch's brew while I plan all my Halloween decorations that go out tomorrow. And sit around the fire pit and probably listen to a spooky podcast. If you have any spooky books or podcasts for the season, send them to me, please. A friend sent me like true crime podcast stuff. I'm not much of a true crime girl. I'm more of a Boogeyman, Stephen King, Joe Hill, that kind of stuff. If it's too real, it's too scary. I need something with a little supernatural feel to it. So if you got something, send it my way. Okay. Let's get a little more purple on here. So if you could please pop in the comments real quick. Let me know if you're not going to be ready. I love that, Carrie. You do you, right? Going a different direction. Ooh, Scared to Death podcast. Thank you for that. Very different direction. Ooh, I love that, Carrie. I'm excited to see what you do with this. It's the beauty of painting, right? You can go whatever direction you want to go. There are no rules. If you're not going to be ready in a couple minutes to put stars on there, please pop something in the comments so I know. But if I don't hear anything, we'll go ahead and move on and start to get some stars in there, okay? So I'm looking at the comments and I'm not seeing that anybody's panicking that they're not going to be ready. So I'm going to go rinse this out. You know, let's go 8:05. So we can, oh, you're welcome, Victoria. Ooh, lore for a podcast. I didn't even think about that because I'm assuming that's like lore on, oh, was it Netflix or Prime? I don't remember, but there was a show that was lore that was really good. Okay, so how about 8:05? That'll give me time to refill my beverage. I'm going to go rinse this sponge out, take a little potty break. Again, I'm not worried about your canvas still being a little wet, the paint being a little wet, as long as you're not going to glitter your stars. If you're going to glitter your stars, make sure your canvas is dry. Because if it's not dry, you'll get a big old plunk of a big old glitter booger on there, wherever the paint's wet. So 8:05, so give me 4 or 5 minutes. So take a breath, get a beverage, grab a snack. 5 minutes, we'll come back together and we'll put stars on there. When we put stars on there, toothbrush, clean water. So I'm going to take this and rinse it out too. Toothbrush, clean water, a little puddle of clean white paint. You don't need much, okay? 4 minutes, we'll come back and work on stars. Okay, 3 minutes. 3 minutes, we'll move on for stars. Toothbrush. If you don't have a toothbrush, you can use just a stiff bristle brush, a little bit of clean white paint, and clean water. If there's a mess in your water, it will change the color of your white paint and it won't be as bright, okay? So 3 minutes, we'll move on. Oh, Jennifer, you have a Harry Potter cupcake. You have to put it up so I can see it. Oh, yes. What's on top of it? Let me see the top. Oh, is it a chocolate frog? That's awesome. Did you go to Ribbon Box? It looks like a Ribbon Box cupcake. Yeah. I saw they had Harry Potter decorated cookies. For those of you that aren't Marysville local, we have the cutest little bakery in the Uptown, Ribbon Box, and their stuff, oh, it's good. Oh, so good. Okay, 1 minute. Clean water, clean toothbrush or stiff bristle brush, clean white paint. Did you get all 6 of them today? I love that, Kayla. I have to be super honest. I'm not a huge fan of their icing. Their icing's really good. It's just not, it reminds me of something and I don't know what it is, but their cake is phenomenal. And their cookies and their brownies. You always trust a chubby girl when it comes to food. Oh, so good. Okay, it's 8:05. Here we go. So I'm going to have you stay with me for a minute. I'm going to show you start to finish how we're going to splatter these stars. And if you're going to glitter, how we're going to do that. And then I'm going to give you 10 minutes to do that because you may want to go outside. A lot of times splatter is hard to control. You'll think you're splattering it right at your canvas, and some of them will inevitably come back at you and go up and over. And if I do much of that in here in my kitchen, I live in a tiny home, my living room is right there, I'm going to be in trouble, right? Because I'm going to wind up with paint all over my sofa. So let me show you start to finish how we're going to do this, and then I'll give you a good 10 minutes to do it, okay? Oh my God, I didn't know there was a cookie dough cupcake. Focus, Kayla, focus. There's not a lot of that tonight, sorry. Okay, so I'm gonna have you just watch me through this whole thing, and then I'll give you time to do it. Toothbrush, again, I never throw away my old toothbrushes. I replace them. I just throw them in my art supply kit. So in my clean water, to move it around in there a little bit. And then I'm going to take it and I'm going to go tap, tap, tap. So I want a little bit of water in the brush, but not a ton. I'm going to take a big old scoop of clean white paint. I got a big old scoop on there. And I'm going over to a clean spot on the plate. And I'm going to scrub, scrub, scrub. I'm using that little bit of water in the toothbrush to thin the paint down. The Blick Acrylic Blockout White is a little heavier than everything else. If you don't thin it down with a tiny bit of water, it won't come off the brush. Okay? Then I'm going to tap the chunks out of it. I don't want any chunks in there. And I'm going to hold this with the bristles up. And I'm going to pull my finger across it toward me, because if I pull the bristles toward me, the paint's going to fly back that way. Okay, so there we go. I'm getting some that are bigger. I'm going to concentrate them a little more in the lighter spots of that color. Now, if I feel like I need more paint, I know it's really hard to see, but they're on there. My stars are on there. So everybody stay with me real quick. If you're going to, if you feel you need more stars, you don't have enough paint on your brush, do the same thing again. Water cup, squish it around in there. Tap, tap, tap. Chunk of paint, clean spot on your plate. Don't go back to that same spot because your plate will start to break down and you'll get paper fiber. If you're using a paper plate, you'll get paper fiber in your paint. Now, if you're going to glitter, you're going to have to move fast because these little teeny bits of paint are going to dry really fast. So what you may want to do is do it in a couple different stages. Flick your paint on there, flick your stars on there, have your glitter ready to go. As soon as you're done flicking, lay your canvas flat, sprinkle your glitter on there, tap, tap, tap on the bottom of your canvas, move that glitter around, and then hold it up either over a plate or your trash can or outside and flick the back of your canvas. Give it some sharp flicks to knock the excess glitter off. Again, you're going to have to move fast if you're going to glitter because those little speckles of paint dry really fast. Okay? So it's 8:09. At 8:20, we'll come back together and we'll start to get our symbol on there, our Harry Potter symbol. So at 8:20, we want to come back with a dry canvas and all of our stars in place. Remember, if you're going to glitter, glitter's a bear to paint over, okay? So fair warning. I guess that's all I have on that. Fair warning. So 10 minutes, 8:20, we'll come back together and we'll start on our symbol. While y'all are working on your stars, I'm just going to throw this out there. Splattering is one of those things that you have to just kind of be okay with what happens. I have a couple that went rogue. And that one right there. And then I have another one up there. Unless they're really like blatantly a root beer float. I love that. I'll have to tell you, Jessica, about my my Harry Potter cup. Marie knows what I'm talking about from a couple years ago. Unless you have a big old blob or a drip or something, I wouldn't even try to fix it. I'm just going to accept it, that those are maybe little shooting stars. I'm going to be okay with that. If you do have a blob or a drip that you have to get off of there because it's far too much, take a clean paper towel in your clean water, get it damp, squeeze it out, and with that damp paper towel, wipe it off of there. If you catch it, if you catch that paint, as soon as it happens and it's still wet, you should be able to wipe the mistake off of there real quick. And I know Bob says there are no mistakes, only happy accidents, but when you have a big old runner of paint down your painting, that's a mistake. Or we incorporate it, we do something else with it. Okay, so 7 minutes. We'll move on. And Jessica, I see we have kids on here tonight, so I'm going to keep this PG. My cup, we had a Harry Potter paint party a couple years ago at the studio, and I made little cups for everyone, and then there were a couple adult cups, and mine said, "Not today, Muggle." Mm-hmm. That's about as far as I can go with that. But it makes my heart happy. It came up in my news feed today as a memory. I'll have to find a picture and share it with you because it makes me happy. Oh. Okay. So we'll move on in about 5-6 minutes. When you're done with your stars, it's time to think about, if you're putting the Deathly Hallows symbol on there, time to think about what circle and what straight edge you're going to use. Really thinking now, I might use the dessert plate. I might use the smaller circle. Oh, I can't decide. If I use the bigger circle, if I use the paper plate, my lines, my triangle, it's going to go off the edge of the canvas. There's a piece of me that's kind of okay with that. Oh, such decisions. So do I want the entire triangle contained on the canvas, or am I okay that it goes off the sides a little? Decisions. I think it's funny that that's my biggest concern, where my biggest concern really should be getting the wand straight up and down in the middle, because you know that's not going to be straight. I just realized the green in the middle of my canvas looks like I have a dinosaur footprint. That's kind of fun. I kind of dig that. Okay, 4 minutes. 4 minutes and we'll move on. Again, at this point, you should be looking for your circle that works for you, the size that you want, and some kind of a straight edge. That's awesome, Kelly. Oh, I love that, Carrie. I love Harry Potter, and I've never been to Harry Potter at Universal. I had the opportunity a couple years ago and I was by myself, and I should have just gone by myself because I was there for a work conference, and I didn't go. And I've kind of regretted it ever since. I should have gone by myself. Because you can put me in a bag by myself and I can have fun. So I don't know why I didn't go. No, that's not true. I know why I didn't go, because it was the end of June in Florida, and I'm a redhead that ought not be in the sun, and I'm chubby and I sweat like nobody's business. And there was nothing about it that seemed enticing enough to get me to go out into the weather. So I stayed inside a lot. Okay, 3 minutes. I'll go eventually. Jessica. It's on my list. I have a girlfriend that's a real big Harry Potter fan, and she and I have decided we'll go together. Because I don't know that my husband would enjoy it because he is who he is, but sorry, it's always, oh, that's awesome, Lynn. I feel like we could plan our own grouping, right? Our own group outing. Um, it's funny when you have animals, right? You have cats or dogs, and you look over and something is just randomly moving. My backpack, my work backpack, that's like my go bag, because I'm on call 24/7. My go bag is just like scooting across the floor. What is happening over there? My bulldog's taking my go bag for a walk. I guess I should ask her if there's an emergency that she needs the go bag. Okay. So one more minute and we'll move on. So again, you should be thinking about what size circle works for you. Think about how you're going to trace that on there. Do you have chalk? Are you going to use paint and trace? If you're going to use paint and trace, what brush are you going to use? If I were going to trace with paint and a brush, I would be really tempted to use something like this little dude, because his bristles are really short. He's real short and stubby. And you might be concerned because he's wide, but you can turn him and use him skinny ways. But I like his little stubby, for tracing, I like his little stubby bristles. Okay, so it's 8:20. Let's go ahead and do this, shall we? So anytime I get ready to put something on my painting, a writing or a symbol or something, I have to map it out in my brain before I actually do it, because I don't want to mess up all the beautiful work I've done thus far. And I know I want always written down here at the bottom. So I'm going to have to keep my circle up a little high so I can accommodate that. And then I want to be able to put trees down here too. So I feel like my always is going to sit right about in that purpley section, which means my circle has to go up higher. So think about it, map it out. And I think I'm going to start with my circle. I think I'm going to go with a smaller circle. Okay. And I do apologize, because to do this, I'm probably going to have to get right in front of it to make sure I get things straight, because straight is not my forte. Okay. So I'm going to start with my circle, and then I'm going to build out from there. And I'm going to go a little higher than center. And I may have to lay this down. Lean this back. Remember, if you're painting on an easel, you're not glued in place, right? If you need to pick it up and take it and lay it flat someplace, you can. Okay. This is close to the center as I can. Using my brush to, I know I'm right in front of it, using my brush to measure out, to make sure I've got it close to the center. And I've got that stubby little brush with a tiny, tiny, tiny bit of white paint. And traced it on there. And then I should probably wash that before I put it back in the cupboard. There we go. Let me set this back up so it's easier to see. So I'm using that stubby little brush, the tiniest bit of paint, sketched it on there. Not going to go real heavy yet. I want to get all my lines on there, and then I'll go in and thicken my lines up. Okay. So let's get it sketched on there first. So I think next I'm going to put my bottom line across there. And when I put my my triangle on there, I'm not going to make it maybe as long as it should be. I'm going to come short of that a little, because I don't want to have a line that comes out here into nowhere that I have to figure out what to do with. Okay, so get your line on there, but stop short so you don't have to figure out how to fix that later. Okay, so I've got my circle, my bottom line. I'm going to go ahead now and find the center of my circle. Oh, I'm going to have to do math. 7.5, 4, so 3.5, 3 and a 3.5 and a quarter. Oh, the paint dried. Okay. Oh, such a challenge to get this straight. I guess that's why I'm using very little paint. I'm using very, very little bits and little sketchy motions, so I don't have a big mistake I have to try to fix later. My sides on here. Okay, something like that. So I know that's probably hard for you to see, but I've got those real light sketch lines on there. I'm going to go in now and make it a little bit heavier. This is always the point where if we were at the studio, somebody would ask, can I use a paint pen? You could use a paint pen, and if you're using a paint pen, that's fine. For something like this, though, I actually do prefer to use a brush. It's a little messier, and it's a little more irregular. I'm okay with that because it's kind of what I want here. I don't want those super clean, precise lines that a paint pen would give me, as weird as that sounds. So I'm okay using a brush for this. But if you're using a paint pen and that's what makes you comfortable, you go right ahead. I'm loving this stubby little brush. Okay, so let's take another few minutes and get our symbol on there. I'm going to move on to write my always at the bottom, and then I will show you how to do trees. So again, to be respectful of everyone's time, it's 8:27. How about 8:35? I will show you how to do trees, because at that point, whether you're done or not, you can stop and paint trees with me. And then you can always come back and finish this up later before a group picture. So I do want to put it out there, since we have some new people joining us tonight, make sure you, that wasn't what I meant to say, back up, strike that, reverse it. So there will come a point that I will call this painting done. Usually right around 9 o'clock, we'll call it done. I'll give you exactly 1 hour then. So if we call it done at 9 o'clock, by 10 o'clock, I'll give you 1 hour. I would like for you to take a picture of yourself. I love seeing your faces in the paintings. So I would love to see you take a picture of yourself with your painting, selfie it up for me, and then private message it to Crooked Door Studio on Facebook. At the end of that hour, all the pictures that I have, I will collage those all together into a little video and a little collage picture and put it out on Facebook, okay? So I like to put that out there. So 8:35, I will show you how to do trees. So if that's something you're interested in, check back in with me at 8:35 and we'll do trees. I'm going to look at the chat feature here. Okay. I'm going to step over in front here. Oh, to be able to open, if you have a little tube of paint, Carrie, look at the lid. See if it's one of those lids that you flip around and you poke down in there. Give that a try. Please don't stab yourself. Nobody gets hurt in my classes. But a lot of times if you flip, if they have little foil on them, you take your lid and you flip it upside down and you can usually puncture it with that. You've tried that and it's not puncturing? No! Toothpick? The tine of a fork? Tweezers? I'm trying to think of things that aren't sharp like a knife because I don't want you to cut yourself. I don't know. That's all I got. Sorry. Ooh, ink pen. Ink pen. That's a good idea. That sounds less stabby. Oh, Emily, I have not checked in with you. What are you having for dinner? What'd your husband make for dinner tonight? Oh, okay. That's fair. Okay, so I have to give a plug. If you're like Central Ohio local, we have the most adorable, well, we have a couple good farmers markets. The Saturday morning farmers market is uptown Marysville and it's lovely, but we have an adorable little market. It's like 4 or 5 vendors. It's really small. Thursday evenings in Richwood. I mention this because I have my dinner planned. I usually don't have my dinner planned. One of my friends is a baker at the farmer's market, and I don't know what she puts in her bread and stuff, but holy cow, it's amazing. And she has started making this bread that's so super soft, and it's kind of like a pinwheel. Like she rolls it up with cheese and garlic. Oh, so for dinner, when we're done here tonight, I'm like salivating thinking about it. I'm going to take that and cut it into slices and then put some pepperoni and some cheese, a little bit of sauce on it, and make little pizzas with it. I'm so excited. And then, okay, I have to show you. So she has also the same thing, but she has started making that into rolls. Oh my God, they're so freaking good. So if you're looking for good bread, this is my advertisement for tonight. Simply Authentic LLC. That's the name of her adorable little business. And she's located right in Richwood. But, oh man, to be able to support local and support small, she is. She is. I'm sure she probably is adding good old Richwood well water. But she's the sweetest thing ever. And she makes amazing, amazing bread. And I haven't been able to make it to the farmer's market because work, COVID, but I've been ordering from her and just picking up at random other times. Oh, it's fantastic. So anyway, that's my ad for tonight. It's not the same as butter, but. Okay, one more minute, and I'll show you how to do trees. Okay, because this is my wand. A little fatter there. Oh, before I do trees, I'm going to take another minute and do my words. So when I put a word on there, I'm gonna sketch out first. You could take a clean brush and sketch it on there with just water. That way, if it's not, you'll be able to see it, but if it's not what you want, no harm, no foul. When I sketch something on there, I will often take the other end of my brush and air write it to make sure I get it spaced the way I want it. So if I wanted to tonight, I could use my ruler to make sure I get it straight, but I'm okay with a little more of an organic feel. So if it gets a little wonky, I'm okay with that. But I do apologize. I'm going to step in front here real quick. Let's see. A, W, A, S. Break this out. One, two, three, four, five, six. So the W, the space between the W and the A should be right close to the middle. So A, L, W. So my W should be ending right about my wand. Okay, I'm just gonna go. A little wonky, but not too bad. Can work with that. Okay. It went a little downhill, but that's okay. A little fatter there. Okay, so it's 8:37. Again, to be respectful of everyone's time, if you want to paint trees, I'm gonna have you tune in here with me for a minute. And I will show you how trees are gonna work. I feel pretty good about that. Okay, brush and water cup. Okay, so for trees, I think I'm gonna keep my trees black down here so they're in silhouette. You can do really any color you want, but I'm gonna use black. So pardon me while I get some black paint out. Okay, and because I'm painting black trees on a dark canvas, it's going to be really hard to see. So I'm going to show you on a paper plate because black on the white plate is going to be a little easier to see. And then I'll move over to the canvas. But let me show you one here on the plate. So I'm going to start with my pointy brush, and I'm going to give myself a backbone for my tree. All right. Skinny, skinny at the top, gets a little fatter as you come down to the bottom, because that's the way trees are built, right? Not straight, it's got a little bump in there. I'm okay with that, right? It's nature. So I'm doing that with my pointy brush. Then I'm gonna move on to my fan brush. And if you need a fan brush, I just ordered more for the studio. Fan brushes are really tricky to find one that works for you. Fan brushes are all different. I just caught myself giving like a big sigh because fan brushes are exhausting. because a lot of fan brushes, the bristles are really soft. I don't like a soft bristle fan brush. I like one that's a little more coarse, a little more aggressive. It helps the bristles stay together. If you get a fan brush that's too soft, the minute you put paint on it, it chunks and turns into fingers, and then you get polka dots. But if you use a fan brush that's a little more coarse, it's less likely to do that. Okay, so I'm going to take that fan brush. So anyway, if that's something that you need, let me know. I have them for sale at the studio. They're nice coarse bristle fan brushes. So I'm going to load this guy up with paint, both sides. Okay, got a lot of paint on there. Now, when you paint an evergreen tree, you have to leave that little top point. That's where you put like the star on the Christmas tree, right? You have to leave that one little blurb up at the top. So I'm going to come down a little bit from that. Using the edge of just the corner of my brush, I'm going to give a little tap. Boop. I'm going to come down a little further and give a heavier boop. I'm just doing a little tap. By the time I get to number 3, I'm going to start tapping back and forth. Okay. And you saw me, I think, flip my brush over. I think you saw that because I didn't like what was happening up here. I had like a weird little gap. So I'll go back up and fix that. Okay. So I know it's really hard for me to instruct you individually right now, but some of the things that I see that people do with trees, not mistakes, but things that could be done better. We get too fat too fast. Remember, your tree is built like a triangle, right? Keep that shape. So stay really small at the top and gradually get wider as you get down to the bottom. Something else I see people do, if we pretend that this is another tree, something else I see people do is they'll do fine up here, but then they'll start to go left and right and left and right, completely neglecting that middle. So don't do that either. When I paint trees, I like to say it in my brain, tap, tap to the left, tap back to the right, tap back to the left, back over to the right. I will actually say that. I'm tapping my forehead. I will actually say that so I remember not to go left, right, left, right. You go tap over to the left, tap over to the right. If you exaggerate that motion, you're actually creating like a zigzag. So if I start here at the top and I really exaggerate what I'm doing and really stretch it out, it's a zigzag kind of thing. But we're going to crunch that up together so you won't see the zigzag. Once we fill it in, you won't see it. Okay, so I hope that helps. I'm going to go ahead and paint some trees down here at the bottom. Yep, I want some trees at the bottom. Again, if you're painting dark trees on a dark canvas, that's another reason I use a lot of paint, is because I want to see that textural difference. I want to see that real thick paint on those trees. It adds another layer of dimension to my painting. So make sure you're using plenty of paint. Let's see, I want a tree right here. I'm going to put all my backbones in first. Maybe one here. I'm all about threes. Maybe one here. Like odd numbers. I'm going to start with 3 trees and see how that makes me feel. Can always add more, right? One. Another one on here. And one more. Okay. All right. I think with that, I'm going to call this done. I mean, I'm going to work on it a little more. I'm going to clean it up. I've seen one of these with the wand in the middle that has circles. So I might play with my wand a little bit, accentuate some of my writing a little more. I don't know, maybe I'll put some glitter in my wand. But before I end, and I'll go ahead and give you the opportunity to unmute yourself if you want here in just a minute. So when you are done, make sure you sign your painting. I know a lot of people don't like to sign their paintings. So even if you don't want to sign on the front, make sure you sign at least on the back. And if you do sign on the back, you can use a Sharpie or a paint pen. Never sign here. Always sign out here, okay? If you sign here, it could bleed through to the front and you could see it later. It's not what you want. So at least sign it here. So you get to decide what your artist's signature is. My signature is S for Shauna Sue, and then blah, blah, blah for my last name. So it's SS blah, blah, blah. And then I always do a little tick and a 20 so I know what year I created it. Okay, it's always nice to have some kind of documentation that way. So I'm gonna mess with mine a little more here when we're done, but I'm gonna go ahead and unmute. Let's call this done at 9 o'clock, just because that's easy to remember. If you would please private message your selfie and your painting by 10 p.m. Everything I have by 10 p.m., I will gather it together, collage it, and put it out on Facebook. So I'm going to go ahead and stop our recording. I should have this recording posted later tonight, I hope. Maybe overnight. We'll see. Let me go ahead and stop.